Good evening and welcome to See You Explore. It is another Thursday, which means we are here again on YouTube. And tonight we are joined by Millie. Hello,
Hi.
I pointed the wrong way there. Millie. So yeah, great to have you here tonight. Would you mind just introducing yourself, what you do, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, cool. So hi, I'm Millie. I'm a relay worker in Bristol, which basically means I get to help UE students sort of explore the Christian faith or put on events. Yes, we do great things like that, which is really good fun. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Lovely stuff. All right, we don't really have too much else to say, so you can just take it away. Go for it.
Sure, great. Okay, so I'm going to start with a question. If you had to describe a perfect day, what would it include? Let's have a think. Would it include seeing friends, doing a hobby you absolutely love, maybe no uni work? I'm sure it would also include a meal or two filled with your favourite foods. However, thinking about food, the big thing about eating is that we learn very quickly that even if we eat until we are full, a few hours later we're hungry again. If I said to you, what do you hunger for in your life? You probably know that I'm not just asking you, what would you like to eat? It's an expression that asks, what are your desires? It acknowledges the feeling of lacking something, wanting more, hoping for something different to what you currently have. This evening, we're going to spend a bit of time thinking about what it looks like to have a hunger for life. Being hungry implies that we want to be made full or to be satisfied. But as I said before, is it even possible to be full or satisfied for more than a couple of hours? There is a story in the Bible about Jesus feeding 5,000 people. It's a kind of what it says on the tin sort of story. Jesus feeds 5,000 people with a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. But the very next day, the people were hungry again. In the story, Jesus teaches us that our hunger is more than a physical need for food, but in fact, a spiritual hunger. So we're now going to hear the passage being read for us that follows this feeding of the 5,000. So I'm going to hand over to Bryn.
I'm going to read from John chapter 6, verses 25 to 35. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval." Then they asked him, "What must we do to do the works God requires?" Jesus answered, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." So they asked him, "What sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do?" "Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, 'He gave them bread from heaven to eat.'" Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty."
Great, thanks so much, Bryn. So in this story, Jesus teaches us that our hunger is more than a physical need for food, but in fact, a spiritual hunger. Let me explain a bit more what I mean by that. So if you've got a Bible open or if you were just listening closely, let's think back at verse 35. It says, "Then Jesus declared, 'I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty.'" Can you see that Jesus is talking about two kinds of appetite? One is for physical nourishment and the other for spiritual sustenance. The first, physical food, is eaten and given as a relief to our hunger. But food rots and goes off. We may overeat or undereat, and when we do feel satisfied, it never lasts long. Spiritual sustenance, on the other hand, endures for eternal life. It is offered to us by Christ. Now, this is all a little strange. Jesus is calling himself bread. But surely Jesus isn't offering up his body to be eaten. So what is Jesus saying? Well, we need to think about what it means when he says, I am the bread of life. If we think back to the story that just been read to us, when the crowd asked Jesus how they can please God, Jesus replies, believe in the one he has sent. In other words, believe in me. But instead of accepting this, their response is to ask Jesus for another miracle. This probably isn't too different to how we would reply. We want convincing, we want constant visual proof that a person is worth believing in. If I said to you, think of a national treasure, apart from Mary Berry, who comes to mind? There are maybe many or a couple of celebrities that you can think of. We all demand constant proof that they are worthy of the title celebrity, don't we? But when they no longer have the lead in the latest BBC drama or are able to pack out the O2 Arena, their significance for us goes. They are no longer a celebrity. They are no longer believed in as anything special. What is strange is that these celebrities may not have lost their acting ability or their great singing voice, but because we don't think about them every day, they lose out in the limelight. They're no longer showing us the proof we need to believe in them. Maybe Jesus is the same for you. It's not that he can't perform another miracle for the people then, or even for us today, but he is convinced that he has shown us that if he shows us another miracle now, then we'd want another one a few days later. Miracles aren't enough. They are fleeting, and like physical bread, only satisfy for a short while. Jesus knows this, which is why he is calling us to accept something that lasts longer than fleeting miracles. At first, Jesus uses miracles to show them who he was and what he was like. He's shown them proof that he is worthy of their trust and belief, but then he offered something so much better. He offered himself. When Jesus calls himself the bread of life, he is asking us to accept him as the provider of everlasting life that will satisfy us forever. So you might think, okay, I get that Jesus doesn't want to give them another miracle. He's saying that he's enough for us. But why bread? Why call himself bread? Well, bread was an important symbol to the Jews at the time. They had passed down family traditions from their ancestors that bread was a symbol of God's providing for them. The idea of daily bread, which you might have heard of, comes from an event mentioned in the Bible account, which we've actually just read. When their ancestors were living in the middle of a desert, God literally dropped down bread from heaven. Each day, God gave them what they needed for that day. God was teaching his people that he was their provider. By never giving them more than they needed that day, he was teaching them to trust in him one day at a time. Trust was hard for them, as it is hard for us now. The pandemic has shown us that. One of the reasons the shelves in the supermarkets up and down the country were empty was because we did not trust that the shelves would stay stocked. We pillaged and hoarded everything from toilet roll to tinned food. But really, I think we can understand this, whether it's right or wrong, trusting that there would be people still able to work, still able to grow, still able to package the food, transport it, and then stock the shelves is a loss of trust in people. But God is not merely a human. He is the creator and sustainer of all things. someone we can trust in, someone who can offer us lasting provision. Jesus is offering us a life that is full and satisfying, a life that will not perish, spoil, or fade. He calls God his Father, and he calls himself bread, food that is a basic fuel for human life. Jesus is showing us that he is the answer to our longings for satisfaction, the provider of a life that will last forever beyond our daily bread, that through him we will have a life that will satisfy our hunger fully. We all have that hunger within us, and we have been looking to fulfill it in places that do not satisfy, or only satisfy for a short time. What Jesus is saying to us here is, do you want to keep looking to those places to satisfy you for a short time, or do you want to look to me? He is telling us that he brings us a life that satisfies, a life that will last so much longer than the one we currently live. You may be thinking, well, that's great. I'd love a life that has lasting satisfaction. How do I get it? Well, it might be strange to say, but it's already been done for you. When we looked for satisfaction in places that weren't God, we turned away from him. When Jesus came, he didn't just offer his life, but he gave it. He wasn't all talk and no action. The reason the cross is such a massive symbol of Christianity is because we believe that when he died on the cross, he gave us his life, which brought us back to God. Jesus is making some really startling claims in this passage, which we can't ignore. He is claiming that he can satisfy our deepest desires and that he is the source of eternal life. So, how are you going to respond? Are we going to wait for another miracle to happen before we believe? Or are we going to trust that what Jesus says about himself in the Bible is true and believe that he is the bread of life, who gives us all we need and who is the source of our hope and joy? Even if you would call yourself a Christian, you may find that at times you still feel unfulfilled. I know I certainly do. Well, may I encourage you to take some time to reflect on how you view Christ. Do you believe he can give you satisfaction? Or if you're honest, have you been looking for that satisfaction elsewhere? In a world where we can easily construct a perfect day based on so many good gifts that God has given, we can so easily forget the greatest gift that we've been given, which is Christ himself. I'd love you to keep turning to him daily, to draw on him for your daily bread, and see that our hunger on earth is simply a yearning for more than the fleeting moments of earthly satisfaction, but for the satisfaction we will receive in heaven. I'm sure I've maybe said quite a lot that maybe you've got questions about, so we're going to go into breakout rooms when we're back on Zoom. So if you have any questions, then do ask them then, and we'll discuss them together. Thanks. I'll hand back to Ben.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for speaking. And obviously, everybody do join us back on the Zoom now. We're going to go into breakout rooms, discuss a few questions relating to what we've just heard. So yeah, we'll see you back on Zoom soon.